soon as I start talking, the music went again. That's always impressive, isn't it? Let's let that do that. Oh, also helps if I do that as well. There we go. Just making sure everything is ticking over, everything is working. That's all doing that. I think I've posted this everywhere, so we should hopefully be okay. Let's click the button. Let's get down to business. Oh. That took a minute to think about it. Hey! Hey Lee! I haven't got space for the big one yet. But we do have the new one. Before we kick off, thanks to Lee, 3D Lee. His bits and pieces are in the description. Let's try and shade the light a little bit. Big thanks to Lee for some more awesome 3D printed bits and pieces, and I've just managed to drop that and knack of the stand live on. Always a good start. Always a promising thing there from Muggins. Let's do that. There we go. A bit of DIY to the set as we're talking. Get that sorted there. There we go. Folk drifting in, which is what we like to say. See? Ugh. Tell I'm tired, can't you? Actually, I'm a bit hot as well. Let's take this off. What we have got for the catch-up crew, I am actually, and I only picked one up because I went to a game when I was over in Belfast, but we are wearing, we did pick up myself an old Linfield shirt, because when I was in Belfast I went and saw Linfield versus Ballymena, so I've been to Windsor Park. I only need the Welsh League now. I've been to a game in every football league and every league structure across both Britain and the Republic, which is pretty cool. What we'll do, because I have actually now synced up the times, figured out the button I'd not pressed to make sure things are going. Keep your stick if you're watching on catch up. Stick in the comments the best souvenir you've picked up on your hockey travels, and we will get underway. Gals and the gender fluid, and all beyond the binary. It is Wednesday, it is 8 PM, and welcome back once again to the BOTW What's Current stream. My name is Anthony Russell, here as we are every week throughout the British hockey season to take you through the weird, wonderful and wacky world that is British ice hockey. We cover the lot. Belfast to Bradford, Leeds to Lee Valley, we leave no stone unturned. Every game across every senior division, men's and women's, will get talked about at some point in the next 60 to 90 minutes. And we will look at and talk about all the big stories along the way, because this is where British hockey lives on the Wednesday night here on the What's Current stream. The only live show to literally talk about everything. We're not the only live show. That would be unfair, if nothing else, because Nikki was live last night. But we certainly are the only one that will talk about every single game that got played over the last weekend. Elite League, National Division, NIHL, SNL, W1 and NIHL. We talk about the lot. So, we are back to our regular format this week. A big thank you to everybody who joined us last Wednesday night, all of our guests, all of you who joined in the chat as well for the Banners on the Wall 15th birthday party. I've put out 5 pieces in the last 8 days. It's like being back in 2012 with the amount I've managed to do. But this is the busy end of the season for me, as it usually is. There are games to commentate on, bits and pieces I want to write for the website. I've got my Coventry programme article to do, yes, because that is happening as well. I will be in Coventry, folks, so I will see you all there. But certainly, like I say, busy times, but it's always good to be busy, and this tail end of the season where everything is coming into really, really sharp focus. A few bits of silverware already decided. A lot more still to come across all the various divisions, and we are thankful that you are here with us along the ride. Obviously, folk coming into the chat, keep sticking in your biggest result of the weekend. But we will, of course, cover the housekeeping. If you know the words, do sing along. Bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, your number one source for all things related to British hockey. Thank you for joining me as ever on my journey this year. My first full year of commentating for the Guildford Flames is nearly at an end, which means we're edging towards the final in the box thinking of the season. Insight and analysis from my perch high atop the Guildford Spectrum as I commentate on the Elite League for the Flames this year. Of course, early today, most recent piece came out from Guildford's game against Glasgow. That happened this past weekend. There's only 2 left for the season, so but you can, of course, go back and enjoy all of those on the website. There's also our Hockey Story series, long-form, in-depth pieces of content where we tell the stories from across the breadth and depth of British and world hockey from the 19th century to the present day, behind the Iron Curtain, into war and beyond. Of course, there's a couple of great bits on there. The newest piece, of course, went up last night. My chat with Nick Rothwell, the former Guildford Flame, former Sheffield Steeler, former Whitelink Raider, and of course the man behind the Retribe Collective in our piece about the power of stories. And basically just to chat with Nick about his journey, what Retribe are trying to do for British hockey players in terms of helping them off the ice and helping them mentally, which of course we will touch on. We'll touch on the lives of British hockey players momentarily, as we are need to do. But you got that. We got the 15th anniversary piece there on the website as well. Our last hockey stories before that with Brad Bonello. Some cracking pieces there. But you do have now. I've been talking about it for ages, but you have 15 years worth of stuff to catch up with over on bannersonthewall.wordpress.com. All of your YouTube spiel down in the description are the links to all of our socials. We're on X, we're on Facebook, we are on Blue Sky, and there's also the link in there not only to 3D Lee and his fantastic 3D bits and pieces that he's given me for the show. Big thanks to Lee for the 15th anniversary stuff. It's massively appreciated to have some really, really talented folk who enjoy what we do and back the show. But if you want to help keep the lights on and keep the wheels spinning, the link is down there as well to our virtual busking hat at buymeacoffee.com/BOTW. Never going behind a paywall. However, capitalism costs money. And it does cost money to do a few bits and pieces. So if you'd like to contribute, if you enjoy what you get, do chuck a couple of quid in the hat. If you haven't got the money, don't spend it on me. Spend it on the things you need to, especially at this time where I know things are hard for people. But like, shares, keeping the algorithm spinning, keeping that the algorithm hamster happy, fat, and fed is always appreciated. And the great thing, of course, is here we are, another Wednesday night. We love our catch-up crew wherever you may be, but we do love our folk who join us live, because it does mean that you get the benefit of the chat, questions, comments, thoughts and feelings, all of that good stuff as we talk our way through British hockey for the next hour and a half or so. All we ask is, if you are using the chat, please do remember the golden rule. DBAD. Don't be a dick. Be respectful of other people's thoughts and feelings, and we will have a jolly good time as we talk about the greatest sport on earth. Rossi from the Slapshot Syndicate is in there as well. Jets beating Solihull over 2 legs. Big result. We will, of course, be talking about all of the playoff quarter-finals from across the NIHL regional divisions. John Akers in the chat as well, I can see. Jet, as well, for someone who's down as an Invicta fan. Hull beating Solihull. The only real shock, I'd slightly disagree on that one, because I think there's at least one in North 2 that I think took people by surprise, and I think certainly the nature of one of the victories in South 2 probably a bit surprising as well. Nicky in the chat, good evening, buddy. Hope you are all right, as Nicky and I have spoken a little bit over the last couple of days. Jamie as well, probably happier with Sunday than he was with Saturday. Really impressed with the Thunder 6-0 win over the Invicta Mustangs on Saturday. Of course, rule number 2 is don't count out the Invicta Mustangs. However, they did make things a little bit hard for themselves into the bargain. We'll do the serious bit, as we usually do at the top of the show, before we go on into anything else, which was the news that came out yesterday of the untimely passing of former Slough Jet, former Bracknell B, former Basingstoke Junior, Adam Greener. Now, I met Adam once, and it was a couple of years ago after he'd been on 4,000 and counting. It was Nicky introduced him to me at Coventry. Never met him before, and Adam Greener, the player, came with the awe and the mystique that you sometimes have when you speak to hockey players, even at the low levels of British hockey. Someone you don't know, but that you've watched and that you've seen do stuff. And got a big handshake and a big smile and how you doing, and that was pretty much kind of, I didn't have that many interactions with Adam. Spoke to him a couple of times across that weekend, but that was pretty much it. I think the thing that we have to be really, really conscious of in these in moments like this as well, and it is that we choose how we remember people, right? Adam Greener in this life was a flawed person. He had his issues. They were incredibly well documented. He spoke to them at the time with Nicky and Bandy and with Mac when all three of them did 4,000 and counting. But one man is more than a mistake if he works to do something about that. And Adam, of course, had this lengthy ice hockey career, and more importantly, he was the dad to two girls, of course, who are now, I believe they're 19 and 17. Nikki, correct me if I'm wrong. Who now are without their dad as they're heading into some really important years of their life. The big thing to say is love and light to all. His girls, his family, his ex-teammates, his friends. Because the amount of stories coming out about him, the amount of stories some of you may have heard about some of his antics on and off the ice are mostly true. And a lot of good people will miss him. But I think as well there's something to be said for people doing their best to make amends for things that they've done and trying to move past the mistake that they made. I think is an important thing too. And we have lost someone who meant a great deal to people in our little community. And like I say, it's not someone I knew well. He's not someone I watched a lot of. But I think sometimes, and especially having talked about it with Nick Rothwell this week, the legacy we leave is the stories people tell about us when we're not around. And I think you can see from the stories being told about whilst we're not around of just what Adam ended up meaning to people in the grand scheme of things. And I think that's worth holding on to. And I hope that the people who are hurting right now, like I said, love and light, and that they will find the way back to the normality. But keep telling those stories. If there's anywhere that appreciates the value of a good story, it is here at BOTW. And I hope that the pain you're feeling will dull in time, but that the stories keep bringing smiles, I think is probably the best I can wish on a situation like that. Yeah, cheers, Nicky. I thought they were 19 and 17. But yeah, love to the Greener family. Love to his teammates and his friends and everyone who's feeling quite sad about it today. And the big message: check on your friends. We say it a lot here. Be happy, and if you can't be happy, then please be safe. If you don't feel like you're being safe, then reach out to somebody, anybody you can, because I think more people are prepared to listen than you might realise in moments like that. Either way, we will, in the spirit of the sport, the clock always ticks. Time moves on, as shall we. The first big story, of course, though, that's come out over the last couple of days is what we'll touch on momentarily. We will just very quickly just catch up with the fact there's a few Elite League games tonight as we are edging ever closer to the final weekend of the regular season in the Elite League. Things as they stand at the moment, because there are four games tonight. Belfast 3, Coventry 2 is in the second period at the Mo. Belfast were. It was tied at 1. Belfast went 2-1 up, then 3-1 up. Jack Hopkins has a short-handed goal for the Blaze to get them back within 1. Cardiff 2-0 up on the Sheffield Steelers at the moment. Christoph Kontos and Joey Martin scoring inside the line with 8 seconds left in the second period to have the Devils 2-1 up. Nottingham 1, Manchester 1. In a game that maybe the Guildford Flames will be hoping that the Panthers will do them a favour in the race for 5th, because of course Flames play Storm last weekend of the season, which will properly decide potentially the last playoff spots. And the other game, which I believe is live on Premier Sports at the moment, is still in the first intermission. Glasgow 2, Dundee 0. Tristan Langan and Brady Risk on the board. Sammy Itakali getting started net tonight for the Clan. What we will do though is we will very earlier than we usually do, but we will pop here just so that we can put it up on the screen. Is get the press release up for you for those of you who haven't seen it. It might be a little bit small if you're looking on your phone, but I promise it's there and we'll go through it. But the news that Grant King, the interim chief exec of IHUK and England's ice hockey, has announced he is stepping down from his position. Some change again at the top of British hockey. Obviously, Henry Stalins stepped away from his role. Grant King stepped in as the interim chief exec of both organisations as the road to unification goes ever onwards. We'll just quickly go through this as it says. King has made significant contribution to the sport with his time at IHUK and EIH, leading and supporting a broad range of work across governance, operations, strategic reform, performance, events and organisational development. during a period of considerable change, has played a central role in significantly strengthening our organisations and the sport in all those areas, and helping ensure both bodies are now compliant with the Code for Sport Governance. Over the course of his time with IHUK and EIH, King served in several capacities, spanning board and committee leadership, executive management, and operational delivery. He leaves having helped shape a period of meaningful reform and development across the sport, and with the thanks of both organisations for his dedication, professionalism, and service. Well, given the fact that he's sort of stepping aside in this nature, I didn't think they were going to put him on full blast. Now, I'm aware Nicky was not overly impressed with Grant King, as he said on his show last night. I haven't met the man, so I will not venture quite that level's worth of stuff. Now, obviously, I scratched my head a little bit about Henry Stalins when he left, why he left at the time he did, in the midst of what's a really important time for the sport in this country. And now, in the midst of that, and the interim person taking over from him has now stepped down as well, which doesn't fill me personally with a massive whack of confidence, it must be said. And it would be really interesting. I appreciate we probably will never hear the why, but me being me, I scratch my head about this because this makes it sound like the task is harder than potentially some initially felt. The press release does go on. At the same time, 2 of IHUK's independent non-executive directors have agreed to join the executive teams at IHUK and EIH. Tim Bratton has been appointed interim chief exec of IHUK and EIH. Bratton joined the Ice Hockey UK board in September 2025 as an independent non-exec director and joins the executive team from the Football Association, where he served as general counsel and chief regulatory officer. Now, given the fact that governance has been such a big issue in British ice hockey, getting somebody who is quite well versed in the regulatory side of stuff at the top, even though he is not a hockey person, having a sports governance person right now as they're trying to get everything in order, that feels like quite a smart move. Stephen Burrell joins us as Chief Operating Officer. Burrell joined the IHUK board in June 2025 as an independent non-executive director for marketing and communications. He's an accomplished corporate affairs professional who has held senior roles with McDonald's and DC Thompson. So the people at the top now are, you've had Henry, who did the big walking through, big public relations facing, but he's now stepped aside. They had Grant King, who's been more involved with the sport, and he has now stepped aside. And the two people kind of in those big spearheading positions of the day-to-day of walking all 3 of these organisations, IHUK and England Ice Hockey and Scottish Ice Hockey, towards the unifications. That's 2 of the 3. We've now got kind of a person whose experiences in sports regulatory bits and corporate communications, which might be where we need to be right now. Now, I know, obviously, I think people want a hockey person in charge of hockey, and to which I point towards Gary Bettman, who's not a hockey person in charge of the biggest hockey league in the world. But I think we're at a point where maybe if your mates are builders, you want your mates to help build your house. But do you want them as the foreman, or do you want somebody else kicking their backside to make sure things get done? And so it doesn't feel initially kind of comfortable in that kind of sense, because it does feel like, for some, it will feel like outsiders coming in and trying to run the sport when they don't get the sport. But right now, the noodly bit, the bit that we really need to navigate as a brand new forming governing body comes into existence, is to make sure that the I's are dotted, the T's are crossed, and that all the full stops are full stops, so that when we get to the end of this point, that we can have one unified governing body, that everything is going to work on day one for the most part. We know it's not going to be perfect. That would be an unreasonable expectation. But if we can get it to a point where we have got to where we are, we need to get this over the line. And so maybe having some people with a bit more of a outsider coming in to show us what the outside world needs us to look like, that might be where we're at on that front. So that's where we are. Thoughts, questions, comments, thoughts, feelings, as we like to say here, do stick them in the chat as we go on, because what we will do is we'll hit this button and we'll move in to have a look at the Elite League from last weekend, and we'll get to the one at the top in a moment and work from the bottom up for once. Glasgow looking to see if they can chase down 7th spot. Had a big win on Friday night. A shutout for Liam Soulier. His first in Clan colours as they beat Fife by 5 goals to 0. Guildford and Manchester actually met the weekend before. The Storm picking up a 4-1 win there. But the Flames do the about face and win by 5 goals to 1. Taz Berman coming in with a few minutes of his second shutout of the season. But either way, the points head back to Surrey with the Flames. Sheffield winning in Dundee. The end of what has been a pretty wretched year for Dundee. But then, as you see at the top, it was the result that seals the deal. The Belfast Giants beating the Nottingham Panthers by 4 goals to 2 means that they go back to back again. The Belfast Giants are the 2025-26 Elite Ice Hockey League champions. Congratulations to Adam Keefe and to all of the organisation at the Belfast Giants for yet another league title. I was on 3-on-3 podcast during the week with David, John and Scott, and I sat there on my phone quickly working some stuff out as they were talking about stuff. Post-COVID, we won't count this year's playoffs because we've not got to that point yet, but up to this point, post-COVID, there have been 14 trophies competed for under the guise of the Elite League. The Giants have won 9 of those 14 at this point now, post the fact that the league has been decided. We are in the Belfast Giants dynasty era. Also, as well, go check out 3-on-3 this week. Me, Dave, John, and Scott chatting hockey for just over an hour. Really enjoyed being on the show. Great guys, but we of course do talk about Belfast and a raft of other things. Into Saturday we go. He says quickly because one of his things has not flashed up on his screen and something's gone sideways there. Let me press that. There we go. And it's Saturday, and there is where I was on Saturday because 6 p.m. face-off meant that the Flames and the Clan were the early show, but a 4-point weekend for Guildford. The form at the moment for the Flames is not bad. 7-2 in March and a 3-2 win over the Glasgow Clan, coming from behind twice. Jack Chacon with the hat-trick and the power play winner with 3 minutes and 15 seconds left to play. The Clan didn't play badly, but they managed to shoot themselves in the foot. And then as everything else was going on around, as you can appreciate commentating, and you can check out my thoughts about Flames and Clan over on the website on bannersonthewall.wordpress.com through In the Box Thinking. But where every other game faced off at 7 o'clock, of course, as our game is edging towards the end, I had scores to kind of keep an eye on, and well, some of the scores in this went a bit wonky all over the place. As you can see by the second one on that list, Sheffield 5, Dundee 6 in OT. Steelers shipped 4 goals in the first period in this one, and there are some very unhappy people in the House of Steel. Coventry getting themselves a big win, up in 5 goals to 3 over the Flyers, and no Milan Lucic again for the Kirkcaldy side. A 0-point weekend for Manchester, losing to Guildford at home and then losing 4-1 to the Cardiff Devils down at the Vindico. And then, having been out on the piss until 4-5 o'clock in the morning, and with a fourth line of the Hamill brothers and Kieran Long, which I have to say might be my favourite line I've ever seen in the Elite League. Belfast beat Nottingham by 4 goals to 3. And if there was a sober Giants player in that lineup, and the only one you'd probably forgive for being sober would probably be Ben Lake. Congrats on the child. Amazing the fact that Belfast, and there were photographs coming out of the players being out until silly o'clock in the morning. For them to turn around and then come out of this game with a win, fair play. We can only assume the Panthers joined you on the drink on that one. And then into Sunday, just the 2 games. Belfast, where they lose in Manchester. The weekend was always going to catch up with them eventually. And Coventry were in the driver's seat, let Cardiff back in, and is still made out of it in the end with a 5-4 victory. One of the things that should be said, and I'd be interested that more has not come of it, but the Evan Mosey knee on one of the Blaze players, he's lucky to have not picked up something stronger than a penalty on that one. Which means we have a look at the Elite League table, and there it is, marked for all to see. The Belfast Giants, champions of the Elite League, once again, 80 points from 51 games. They are, of course, playing tonight, and we'll have a check of the scores momentarily. But then, the top 4 are still to shake themselves out with all three all three, of course, playing, all four of the top four playing this evening, and Manchester playing as well. We await to see what will happen in the playoffs. Cardiff and Sheffield both on 69, Nottingham on 68, the Storm on 61, and the Flames on 60. Those two, as I say, will meet on Sunday for the last game of the regular season. Coventry play tonight. They're on 57 points, so of course not out of the 5, 6 and 7, not locked in yet. Glasgow, well, irrespective of what happens there, it would take a little bit much for them to overhaul Coventry. They still mathematically can make 7th, as we all know. Dundee and Fife have been out of this one for a while. So we've obviously got this evening's games as we know them there. He says quickly hitting the buttons on his phone and just refreshing everything very, very quickly. Belfast 4, Coventry 3 in the second, as that game is really kicking into high gear at the SSE. Still 2-0 Cardiff and Sheffield in the second intermission there. Still 1-1 between the Panthers and the Storm, and Glasgow still 2-0 up on Dundee in the second period. Elsewhere fixture-wise as well, the last weekend of the regular season in the Elite League incoming. So Saturday and Sunday, full docket of fixtures across the board. Sheffield take on Glasgow. Fife take on Dundee. What an ending to the season that is for those two sides. Cardiff, Coventry, Manchester and Nottingham will about face front tonight and meet at the Storm Shelter on Saturday. Belfast welcome Guildford. And then the final game of the Elite Ice Hockey League regular season is Sunday. Glasgow versus Sheffield, Nottingham, Cardiff. So there could still be some wrangling around for final positions, and Glasgow, potentially, if results go their way, could be in with a chance of 7th if they can win the games they need to. Dundee versus Fife, again, what an ending to the season that is for both sides. Coventry versus Belfast at the Skydome, and then, well, it's the last game to face off, which means Muggins here is calling the end of the final game of the EIHL regular season. Guildford and Manchester meet at the Spectrum this Sunday. It is a 6 p.m. face-off. The game is sold out, meaning the only way you can catch up on this one is to join Muggins here on Flames TV. As I said, 6 p.m. face-off will be live around the 5:55 mark, so you can join us for all the joy of that one. And then, of course, next week, the playoffs. We will actually, what I'll do, if I go back, just so for folk who aren't aware of the format, the Elite League playoffs is a two-legged quarter-final, and then, of course, the top four make the finals weekend at the Motorpoint Arena in Nottingham on the 18th and 19th of April. If the playoffs started today, it would be Belfast versus Glasgow, Cardiff versus Coventry, Sheffield, Guildford, Nottingham, Manchester. As someone who's watched the Flames a lot this year, if Guildford can get away with playing Cardiff or Nottingham, it's a much better matchup for the Flames than I think if they play the Steelers. But, of course, a lot still to be done. And whilst we are pondering the playoffs in the Elite League, they have begun. The two groups of the playoffs are underway in the National Ice Hockey League National Division, kicking off as it did on Friday night. And the Sheffield Steel Dogs are grinding out a 3-1 win over the Peterborough Phantoms. On Saturday, well, it was indeed Heskey time. The Hull Seahawks getting a 3-1 victory over the MK Lightning. Romford have a good record in the playoffs in Swindon. I was there the other year when Romford beat Swindon at the Link Centre in the playoff groups. But Swindon managed to squeak their way through. They win in overtime against Romford. Leeds beat Telford by 3-2. And then in Sunday, everybody was back in action, and no joy this time for Romford. Swindon run out 5-2 winners at the Sapphire. MK fully about face and give Hull a kicking at the Thunderdome. 6-1 victory for Lewis Christie's side. Peterborough, a 0-point weekend for them as they lose by 7-4 in a bit of a gunfight at Bretton against the Steel Dogs. And the Tigers, well, it ran almost all the way to the end of overtime. 64-55. Dan Rose with the overtime winner means that the Tigers get 3 points out of the weekend get 2 points out of the weekend against the Knights, but the Knights do get the 3. So the playoff groups as they stand in Group A, both in Group A at the moment, Peterborough bottom, no points out of the weekend. Romford's point in overtime could obviously prove very, very important somewhere along the line, but the Dogs and the Cats both on 4 points. So the Dogs are top of the table. Both of their wins in regulation means that they are above Swindon as a result. In Group B, That point, that OT point for the Knights means that they currently sit top of Group B. Everybody else at the moment sits on 2 points, but of course the record and the goal difference for MK over Hull has them above the Seahawks, and the Tigers with the Tigers 6 and 6. According to that, sit currently bottom of the standings. As the playoffs rumble on, of course, that doesn't it means we're getting towards the end of the season, but that doesn't mean that our boy Max Van Mullen has stopped on the graphics. Big thanks to Max for joining last week on the show and having a chat about stuff as well and how he makes these graphics. And crazy to think the amount of work he's put in over the last 2 seasons. Massively appreciative to him. But things are back in. Things are rolling again on Friday night, 7:30 p.m. face-off at Ice Sheffield. Dogs and Cats. The cup winners and the league champions will go head-to-head under the Friday night lights in Group A. Then into Saturday, 4 games on the docket, and the Yorkshire Derby with a full sack of marbles on the line. Leeds, Hull. That one is going to be absolutely outstanding. MK are back at home. They take on Telford. Romford versus Peterborough as they look to compound them, as the Raiders look to compound the misery for the Phantoms after the first weekend. And then the Cats and the Dogs will about face. It's Saturday night at the Link for Swindon and Sheffield. And then just the 3 games on Sunday with the Friday night game. Hull and Leeds will about face, of course, as will Peterborough and Romford. Telford meet MK on Sunday in Shropshire. Right, I'll hit that button there. Questions, comments, thoughts, feelings, anything anybody wants to chuck in the chat. Obviously, fewer games to talk about, which does sometimes occasionally make the show a little bit shorter as a result. However, no dramas there because, of course, we are all busy people. 4-3 end of second at the SSE between Belfast and Coventry. Just looking at the scorers, Jake Cadets, Scott Conway, Nicholas Gay, and Carson Tawinski with the goals for the Giants. Goals for the Blaze coming from Alessio Luciani, Jack Hopkins, and Grayson Constable, as we are in the second intermission there. No change to the scores anywhere else at the moment. In the Elite League. Was slightly concerned today, and we'll obviously talk about them at some stage. But Scottish Ice Hockey says that the first leg of the playoff tie between Edinburgh and North Ayr is tonight. It is not. So we will obviously keep tabs on what's going on there. An interesting stat as well. That first period in Cardiff between the Devils and the Steelers. From puck drop to buzzer at the end of the first period, 24 minutes. It is the shortest period of the Elite League season so far. Can you tell everybody wants to get out of the way and get back to bed with their cocoa? Obviously this is from a bit earlier from Rossi. I'm 2 minutes behind, so forgive me if I've already mentioned. Great to see Cammy and Carter lined up for Belfast together this past weekend. Yep, and Kel Beattie in there as well. Kel Beattie gets his first point as a Belfast Giant. So great to see some of those younger guys. Of course, Cammy and Carter been away for a little while. Obviously, been a very busy year for both Hamill brothers, both in Solway and in Bristol, respectively. Though, of course, one of them has seen much more action with the Giants than the other. Kel has been in and out of the lineup. Of course, you'd think at a time like this as well, where he fit. Rhodes Mitchell King might have seen a little bit of time for the Giants this weekend as well, if he wasn't on the road to recovery after surgery. But a lot to be said there. MK were very impressive on Sunday night. On Sunday night and day from their Saturday performance. Big weekend to keep momentum going, but won't be easy against a tricky Telford team, says Jamie. And certainly Telford at this time of the year, even though of course they finished a bit lower down the table, you can't count them out in situations like this. If there is a team built to grind, it is a team coached by Tom Watkins, and that is what's going to be the big overriding factor. You are going to have to outwork Telford. It's not just a case about scoring and being pretty. Not at this time of the season, because the one thing that Telford will do is turn up and grind you into dust. That is how they won under Tom Watkins, how they ended up winning 2 National Division titles back-to-back either side of COVID. Was the fact that they were a consistency machine and just ground their way through everything that they did. And that was a big issue on that for teams there. But as you say, it looks like a really It looks like it's going to be a tough weekend for all concerned. I mean, looking at it, I do worry a little bit about Peterborough, purely in the fact that I think they needed to get at least a point out of Sheffield to just help their cause a little bit. But back-to-back games against Romford is the biggest chance for both of those sides really to get to put a stamp on the board. If you think if Romford come out of the weekend with 2 wins, putting them on 5 points, given the fact that Sheffield and Swindon, it wouldn't be impossible for them to split this in either direction, which would then leave obviously Peterborough. Peterborough lose both games this weekend, that's them done. They are out. So if you ended up potentially going to next weekend, into the final weekend of the playoffs, with Swindon on 6, Sheffield on 6, and Romford on 5, that is huge in terms of the amount, the scare factor that the Raiders would be able to provide. But they would then need to get a result out of Sheffield, which would be a really, really tough one. But then again, if Peterborough win and you get a split, it's not quite as dangerous because of course 2 is bigger than 1. We can all do maths just about. But I think certainly if Romford somehow managed to get themselves a 4-point weekend out of this, it is all go. Because then if you think if Sheffield or Swindon get a 4-point weekend and Romford get a 4-point weekend, that would put one of the either the cup winner or the league champions on 4 points below Romford going into the final weekend. So Romford are Swindon fans, I think, for the weekend, I think is the best way to describe this one. Group B, as I said, looked a much tougher prospect. MK versus Telford, I think, does favour MK ever so slightly, only because the form has just been so good recently. Hull and Leeds, you wouldn't put it past a split, and I think that's the issue here, is that one is going to go down to the absolute wire. Whereas there are ways through. If Group A finished like it did right now, Sheffield, Swindon, Romford, Peterborough, I don't think anybody would particularly bat an eyelid. I don't think that the table in Group B as it stands, Leeds, MK, Hull, Telford, it definitely does not finish like that, in my opinion. I think it's 4 out of 5 years MKL have had Telford in the playoffs, in playoff groups, so we are well accustomed to one another. It's like Cardiff and Coventry seem to trip over each other in the playoffs in the Elite League every so often, or because of course in the way it works in the other divisions with quarterfinals and semi-finals, but the Nottingham Lions have faced Billingham, faced Solway for about 3 years in a row, then Billingham for 2 years in a row, and now I've got Blackburn and might get them for a couple of years in a row. And so you think after a while you'd learn some tricks, but the gap is a bit wider in those divisions than it is in this one. The other news, of course, out of the National Division, Stuart Mogg announced as having re-signed for the Basingstoke Bison. Good first bit of business, really, to announce for the Bison. Local guy, former Basingstoke junior. Actually had a really, really good season individually, I think. Moggy. Great to have him back. One of the sort of what you think if the Bison hadn't disappeared off for a little while, and had some of the issues it had. It could have potentially been a Bison lifer, but back now, back at home, and obviously a great thing to see. Of course, we know that the Johnny Yansis will be back next season for Solway as well. I did think that Solway had announced another re-signing, or at least they were going to. He says double checking something that he's seen. Also, I do note that the season tickets are out for the Sharks. For Solway, just having a look at Solway, early bird pricing for the season tickets for the Sharks: $4.20 for a seat, $3.95 for standing. It should be said that a Guildford Flame season ticket, I believe, is $4.40. If that tells you anything about the cost of bits and pieces. The other bit of news as well, actually, out of the Sharks, was the fact they have had their end of season awards. Going through the bits and pieces, Dylan Stewart, top point scorer. Jordan Boyce was the top British point scorer. Carter Hamill, unsurprisingly, forward of the year from the Sharks Supporters Club. A fantastic year for Carter in South Scotland. Defenseman of the year, Kel Beattie. Unsung hero on the ice, Duncan Spears. And then unsung hero off the ice, Scott Houston, better known as better known as Scooter, part of the equipment team there. Coaches Player of the Year was Duncan Spears. Young Player of the Year, not unsurprisingly, Kyle Carruth. Carter Hamill getting the Shield Award, and the Sports Club Player of the Year was Duncan Spears. MVP of the team was Johnny Yancis, and then there was a tie for Players Player of the Year between Duncan Spears and Carter Hamill. Remember as well, Anthony Leeds have 5 out for the final weekend games with MK on GB under 18 duty. Still got to beat them, Jamie. That's all I'll say. I've seen 13 guys. I've seen teams with fewer guys pick up wins at EPL level as well. So don't no count. Even though as we edge towards Easter, do not count your chickens before they hatch. Do not say there's something in that cave before you roll away the stone and check. Leeds season tickets are $4.95 early bird, $5.40 normal. Let me just double check actually while we're talking about it, because the Flames had put their prices out. He says just double checking, because Leeds as well, and actually we talked about it the other week about how good Leeds were for the fact that they bothered to amend their wording to make it make sense. So yeah, Guildford put out their season ticket bits and pieces up on their website at the moment. Season ticket renewals 25 to 26 holders only will be available from March 26th to May the 1st. Current holders have been contacted directly. A capping limit is in effect, and remaining new season seats under the cap limit will go on sale May 5th, 2026. So as it stands, the most expensive season ticket for the Flames, which are in blocks E and I, so centre ice, the most expensive season ticket for Guildford for next year as a single adult is £460. The other seated blocks for adults, are £440. A family season ticket in blocks D, F, G, H, J, or S, so that's 2 adults and 2 children, is £1,040. Now, for Elite League hockey, I don't think that's too bad. All things considered. I've just had a message. Now do Sheffield season ticket prices. Well, I don't have access to their hub. It's always nice to know you're being watched. Because certainly the Guildford ones are for Elite League hockey. I don't think that's too bad a value. I know Sheffield have put theirs up. I know the Steelers have put theirs up very, very slightly. But I don't know what the Dogs are doing, and I don't have access to the hub because I don't need to buy tickets up there. Leeds standard tickets are going up to £22.50 with the Planet Ice tax. There we go. I'm not reading that bit out, Dave. I don't know whether you've censored yourself or whether the chat has censored you. But with the fees, that's $25.20 per adult. Let's see if that works out on that one then. But yeah, so we can. Jamie, you'll know this. What are have MK put out their season ticket renewal bits and pieces yet? Because we can certainly have a look at some of the prices. We may as well have a chat about that. What we'll do, get your season ticket prices for bits and pieces for your clubs ready, and let's actually have a look at it while we're chatting about it. But let's also talk about the other bits and pieces going on. Excuse me. Well, you pull your bits of information together. I will go and have a... Dave censored himself. That's fine. Let's have a look as well at what happened elsewhere around the NHL, because of course in Division 1 and Division 2 North and South the playoffs have begun. Now, no groups like in the National Division. It is quarterfinals, then semi-finals, both over 2 legs, and then the finals for all of the regional divisions of the NHL. They of course will take place over the course of the weekend after next. The Steel City Showdown on the 11th and 12th at Ice Sheffield. North 1, where we usually start a course, and it meant 8th versus 1st. Nottingham versus Blackburn at the small pad at the Motorpoint Arena. And, well, a battle for the Hawks. 2-1 down at the end of the first period, but they do fight their way back. A hat-trick from Dylan Hullaby, helping Blackburn on their way to a 5-2 victory. Hullaby's goals joined by those from Adam Barnes and Charlie Thompson. Luke Birchnell with the 2 goals for the Lions in the first leg there. And not quite as close a first leg as well. 2 former Hockey Stories interviewees, Tyler Delabatouche on one side, Luca Tassadri on the other. but not a close game in North Wales between Deeside and Widnes. Ice availability and such like, meaning the Dragons elect to go first, and they pick up a comfortable 8-3 victory over the Widnes Wild in the first leg. 51 shots for the Dragons in that first leg, and a hat-trick, of course, for Jake Witkowski, a 5-point night for the American. The other goals for the Dragons coming from Daniel Svadiyevs, Ross Kennedy, Theo Malone, Colin Cromie and Rhys Evans. Colin Cromie as well announced as being back for the Dragons in 26-27. Goals for the Wild from Alex Parry, Michael Gilbert and Andrew Hopkins. As you can see there, Luca, as we talked about in the past, he averages 43 shots against, faced 51. Great fun for him. Elsewhere, Saturday evening, Hobbs Moat Road, we talked about it, the shock of the weekend, and the Barons losing at home to the Jets on night one. Ethan Daintith picking up another hat-trick. He appears to have had his Weetabix and his Ready Break heading into the playoffs so far. The other goals for the Jets coming from Bo Reader, Ian Kerman and Aidan Dancer. The Barons goals coming from Nicholas Otterson, Henry Adams, Brandon Anderton and Alex White. And then, of course, there was... Oh, he says, I'm impressed too far. There was Telford and Billingham. Could the playoff champs, could last year's Northern Grand Slam winners do the business? Or given that the poor year that they've had, were they about to lose all of their trophies all at once? Telford 3-0 up at the end of the first period in this game, but Billingham do pull themselves back into it. 4-3 final score at the end of the first leg on Saturday. Between Telford and Billingham in what will have been a cracking game. Vladimir Luca, Tyler Summerton, Taylor Stanton and Jason Silverthorne with the goals for the Tigers too. James Helens, Callum Wilkinson and Ian Brown for the Stars. And then the next night, well, they needed to put their heads down and do it, but they may have lost the league and they may have lost the cup, but the playoffs lives for the Billingham Stars. A 4-1 victory at home on Sunday night means a 7-5 aggregate victory. Ian Brown, Chris Sykes, James Moss with the goal to take them over the line. Callum Wilkinson's empty netter with 9 seconds to go, ending Telford 2's first season back at the NIHL Division 1 level. Dan Harrison with the lone goal for the Tigers in this one. Whether we see any more of Jason Silverthorne and Vladimir Luca at this level remains to be seen. But either way, their season ends ends for them prematurely, certainly in their hopes. However, all things considered, not a bad season for Tigers too. A 4th place finish in the league, cup finalists, although losing out to Deeside. They won't be happy with this as well. But a respectable, very respectable return to Division 1 for the second side in Shropshire. And then, well, they did it. A 3-2 victory at home for the Jets over the Barons. Admittedly, the 3 coming from that empty netter later. Solihull tried to cash in their chips. But the Barons, who since they got knocked out of the cup have pretty much been in free fall, and 6th beats 3rd in the playoffs in North 1. Alex White and Lucas Price with the goals on the night for the Barons. 2 from Kieran Beach and that empty netter from Ethan Daintith, sending the home fans home happy. It's going to be a very, very interesting other semi-final in North 1 when we get to it, and we've got the graphics to show momentarily on that one as well. Widnes, well, they put up a pretty decent fight at home, but ultimately Deeside just too strong. 5-3 on the night, 13-6 on aggregate, and the Dragons will coast their way into the semi-final. And the game that had, as you can see, a few penalties, including for the fact as well, Bailey Thomas out of the MK lineup playing for Deeside in the playoffs as well, certainly will do no harm for Mike Clancy's side. 2 goals for Jared Dickinson. The other goals coming from Ross Kennedy and Colin Cromie for the Dragons. The goals for the Wild coming from Dan Hyde, Michael Gilbert and Alex Parry. Big shout, of course, to Luca. As you know, Luca frequently pops his head into the chats and bits and pieces like that, but facing over 100 shots over the two legs. Widnes, it's been a better year. It was pretty abject at times for the Wild last season. A much better side this year. Certainly, our boy Luca has certainly been a big part of that as well. I've just seen there. Did he get himself a? Yes, he did get himself. He got himself a tripping penalty after 6 minutes. Luca, what are you doing? And then the champs. Well, the champs coasted firmly into the last 4 of the playoffs in North 1 as well, as they put up a 10 spot on the Nottingham Lions. 10-2 the final score in Blackburn. 10 goals on 53 shots as well into the bargain for the Hawks, and a hat-trick for Tom Barry from defence. clearly having himself a bit of a night of it. In everybody's head, as well as on the score sheet, is Tom Barry. A hat-trick as well for Andy McKinney, to Adam Barnsley, Pollitt, James Royd, Liam Charnock with the other goals for the Hawks. The Lions season finishes off with goals from Toby Fisher and Luke Birchnell. So as we say, we'll talk about the bits and pieces and the graphics and the games properly as we've got the graphics momentarily as we head to South 1. He says, quickly just checking the chat. My prediction was right. I did get over 100 shots this weekend, but Widnes getting to Sheffield was wrong. It's a score draw, Luca. You've earned the rest, mate. Enjoy yourself is probably what I would say on that front. Like I say, folks, keep dropping your season ticket bits into the chat, and we will talk about them once we've gone through all the results of everywhere at the end of the show. South 1, and that result a little bit closer for call than I think Streatham would have liked it. A pretty big performance between the pipes from our boy Max Van Mullen for the Buccaneers, but Streatham do get out of Romford with the lead 3-2. Nils Maskelyne and Shay Woolmore with the goals for the Buccaneers. JJ Pitchley, Danny Ingoldsby and Ziggy Beasley with the goals for Streatham. No scoring in the third period in this game either, as you can see there. Pretty solid performance from both netminders. 30 saves on the night from Danny Milton, 40 on the night from our boy Max. Chelmsford took their quarter-final first leg at home first, and cruised to a comfortable win over Swindon Wildcats 6-2 the final score at the Riverside. Swindon's goals coming from Alfie Goddard and Luca Kirk-Brown. Elsewhere, 2 goals from Ewan Morrison, as well as goals from Tom Saw, Callum Wells, Grant Bartlett and Elliot Dervish gave the Chieftains the victory in that one. As you can see there, Ben Clark-Leach making 43 saves for the Cats. And then, well, yeah, not great. A little bit one-sided at the hangar, as Slough was also volunteered to go first because of ice availability with Cardiff. But as well as you may not notice, and if you want to, you can go back and double-check all of the box scores on NIHLstats.wordpress.com. This was 0-0 after 20 minutes. It was 0-0 until the 26th minute. And then Slough decided to wake up and cause everybody a massive headache. A 13-shot shutout for Matt Smittle between the pipes. Hat-trick on the night for Seb Moore, along with 8 points for him. 2 goals and 6 points for Ollie Hemmings-Marr. The other goals coming from Jude Affleck, Liam Clark, Ed Cave Humphrey, Jacob Minter, Christian Moore and Juha Lindgren. And then the other first leg was on Saturday down in Kent, Invicta and Solent. They do this dance every single year. But one that ultimately, this time, went the way of the Dynamos on Saturday evening. 2 goals from Aaron Connolly and a goal each from Aaron Strawson and Daniel Gattenby for the Dynamos. Connor Hutchinson with the Lone Devils goal in this one. And then on Sunday, well, they gave it a good try, but ultimately just a little bit too much work to do for the Devils. 4-3 on the night, but 7-5 to Invicta on aggregate. And again, and the Devils this time get their way. The Dynamos get their way past the Devils on this occasion. Jacob Hammond, Jack Peacock, and Harry Cloutman with the goals for the Devils. Cam Pywell, Dan Scott, and then that empty net goal to kill off the tie from Jacob Ranson sees Carl Lennon's side into the playoff semi-finals. We also saw the retirements after this game of Connor Hutchison, Dan Lackey, as well as, I'm trying to remember who the other person was, Liam Coleman. Yes, it's Dan. Apologies there, Liam. You just completely skipped out of my head there for a second. But the number 6, the number 9, and the number 34 of the Solent Devils heading off into retirement with their campaign now done. Swindon, it's not been a bad year for Wildcats too, I don't think, on the whole. 7-1, probably a scoreline that doesn't do justice for the effort put in from Cats too. And also, with all the will in the world, Ben Clark-Leach ain't playing South 1 next season, so it remains to be seen what Cats 2 under Ken Forsey do going forward for 26-27. But again, another respectable season from Swindon Wildcats 2, but a 7-1 victory for Chelmsford, and they, as they head into the semi-finals at a counter. Jake Williams with the last goal of the Cats 2 season, and then 7 different goal scorers for the Chieftains. TJ Fillery, Cam Bartlett, Grant Bartlett, Halden Barnes Garner, Ollie Baldock, Tom Saw, and Ewan Morrison fire Lewis Clifford's side into the next round of the postseason before he calls time. And then, it didn't get much better for Cardiff, although they did score at home in the second leg. But a 15-2 on the night to Slough, 26-2 on aggregate. One-sided is probably something of an understatement, even to the point I've forgotten that he'd scored the last goal, but he did manage to get himself on the score sheet. Did our boy Marcus Mitchell? Hat-trick for Ollie Hemmingsmar, 2 goals for hat-trick for Luke Smittle. That'll make some people very happy. 2 goals for Juhal Lindgren, and as we mentioned, Marcus Mitchell, Seb Moore, Hind Pitcher, and Craig Thurston with the goals for the Fire. Paul Gemma Davis being in goal, then out of goal, and then, as you can see there, a tough night for the Fire as their anniversary season comes to a conclusion. And well, the Red Hawks, they missed out on the league title by the skin of their teeth, and missed out on the cup by the skin of their teeth. But they power their way past Romford in the second leg on the high road. 5-1 on the night, 8-3 on aggregate. Just a little step too far for the Buccaneers, who started off okay, dropped a bit, and then worked their way back up as the season went on. James Warman, Danny Inglesby, Luke Brittle, two from Luke Brittle, and Ziggy Beasley with the goals for the Red Hawks. Migas Canis with the lone goal for the Buccaneers as they head off into their summer. Another 43 saves on the weekend from our boy Max. Just what he needs now is he gets a bit of a rest ahead of GB under 18s. North 2, and I'm always a big proponent of people getting out of their bubbles and going and watching different hockey, so we will touch on that momentarily. But the Sheffield Titans, who sort of stepped in and played the role that Sutton played last year of being the nearly men, well, they managed to get themselves off to a good start in the playoff quarter-final. 6-1 victory over the Kingston Sharks. With this one, with a pretty decent start for the Titans, they look to see if they can dent Sutton's march towards a Grand Slam. 2 goals for Harry Roebuck, and the other goals coming from Ocean Phillips, Noah Barnes, Mark Illingworth, and Josh Rawsthorne. The lone Kingston goal on the Saturday coming from Harry Clegg. And then the one-off game, no ice availability available, meaning that Billingham and Altrincham was a one-game shootout to decide who would make it through. Billingham were 2-0 and 4-1 up in this game before Altrincham dragged their way back into it with less than 4 minutes to go, and then with 42 seconds left, Artem Pavlov scores the game winner, and Billingham take their place in the playoff semi-finals in North 2. Goals for the Aces in this one from Ollie Gotts, Dylan Harcourt, Josh Milnes, and Kane Morin. The goals for the Buccaneers: 2 from Pavlov, 2 from Matt Pickup, and the other from Sam Dowd. Crushing for the Aces, of course. They picked up the Hockey Hound Challenge Cup trophy in North 2. And at the end of the season, I don't know what happened, but they seemed to flip a switch and just absolutely made a really big charge. And then couldn't get ice availability to have a second leg in Altrincham. You can only imagine what might have happened. Either way, the Aces season is over. But again, they've certainly given a good show of themselves, particularly in the last part of this season. If you haven't already, do make sure at some stage to go over to the Coventry NIHL Blazers social media. There is a sequence in this where the Dragons had 8 shots in 6 seconds, of which 7 were turned away by Hayden Laverick, and the other one was blocked by the defenseman on the line. But I did get a message from Coventry Blaze Elite League commentator Stu Coles. He popped down to watch this game and certainly said it was a game. And something of a bit of a surprise, the Blaze have hit injury issues as the end of the season has come on. But 2 goals from Tom Brooks-Smith and 1 from Ryan James had them on the board in this one. D-side goals, 2 from James Shaw, the other from Tom Warburton, and giving the Dragons a good chance heading towards the second leg at D-side. Kingston and Sheffield, well, ultimately the Titans just too strong. They have been one of the better sides across the course of this North 2 season. 5-2 on the night at the world's most versatile arena, 11-3 on aggregate. The Titans waltzing into the semi-finals on this one. Goals for the Sharks coming from Nathan Sutcliffe and Lewis Rogers. The Titans goals coming from Noah Barnes, Alfie Longmay, Ocean Phillips, Scott Howells, and Marcus Janssens. And then, well, yeah, we kind of knew this would happen. This was another one where you kind of thought not so much what would happen, but how high would the score be. Yeah, Sutton beat Nottingham 7-0. That's how that went. we, like I say, you wouldn't have put your house on this one. James Spencer, Adam Brooks-Smith, Morgan Glasby, Alex Williams, Jamie Scott, Joe Colton, Elliot Meadows with the goals for the Sting in that one. Nathaniel Bell with an 11-shot shutout. James Guest faces 51 shots at the other end. And then, well, something of a shock. In my personal opinion, I wouldn't have had Deeside 2 to make their way past, but a 7-4 victory on home ice against the Coventry NHL Blaze, and the Dragons too are into the semi-finals of the playoffs. 10-7 the aggregate score, and the Blaze, who you probably would have suspected could have been an outside bet for even making the final had things gone their way, unable to do so. Their season comes to a premature end. Hat trick for James Shaw, doing a lot of the legwork for D-side 2. James Parsons, Stuart Cutting, Cameron Krishnarenko, and Thomas Chong with the goals for the Dragons. Harrison Sumner, Tom Brooks-Smith, Charles Coney, and Sam Prosser with the goals for the Blaze. We'll then hop into South 2, and it was another one-game shootout. The Canucks unable to get any ice availability for South 2, meaning it was one game winner-take-all at Alexandra Palace. Doesn't sound too bad. Certainly worked for the bases at Buffalo back in the day, but ultimately the occasion just getting the better of the Canucks. Haringey 3-0 up at one point in this game, and a 7-2 victory at the end for the Haringey Huskies to move them on to the semi-finals. Giacomo Raffaelli and Sam Davies with the goals for the Canucks. Haringey's goals coming from Matt Gannas, Ollie Cooper, Kart Etuazim, Connor Smith, Courtney Grant, Stuart Appleby, and Ruskin Springer Hughes. Peterborough, on the other hand, though, managed to get 2 legs between them and Oxford and made light work of the first leg. 7-1 in the end, the score for Phantoms 2, having just missed out on the league title. And again, they took it out on Lee Valley the weekend before. That finished 17-0. And Oxford given no quarter either in this game. Matt Lorday with a goal for the Rising Stars. 2 goals for Connor Pollard, and then goals from Nathan Pollard, James White, Louis Kinniston, Connor Mellett, and Nathan Long for Phantoms 2 to put them in a commanding position. And then, well, it was already mentioned in the chat. Jamie mentioned it. A 6-0 victory in MK Thunder's first appearance in the South 2 playoffs for quite some time, and a comfortable victory as it was over our friends the Invicta Mustangs. You can't count out the Mustangs, in fact out shooting MK on the night, but ultimately not enough. A 35-shot shutout for Aaron Burton. 2 goals on the night for Zander Robinson, 1 for Josh Blackwood, and a hat-trick on the night for Marks Canis, who has to be in the running for some sort of South 2 Player of the Year, given the amount of scoring he's put up for the Thunder. It was the late face-off on Saturday evening between Bristol and Guildford, and an 8-2 victory for the league Pitbulls 2. One of those games that you felt Bristol needed to get a result out of this one to have a chance the following night, and as you can see there, the shot count heavily favouring a Phoenix side who did travel a bit light. A hat-trick though for Josh Abbott, 2 goals for Scott Bailey, and goals from Monty Gaylor, Jacob Rondo Smith, and Joe Stevenson. The goals for Pitbulls 2, Ollie Schoen, because it's always Ollie Schoen, and Joe Malfatti. And then the next night, straightforward stuff for Guildford. 6-1 victory, 14-3 on aggregate. The league champs, with the league champs cruising into the semi-finals of the playoffs. And a 4-goal night for Josh Abbott. 7 on the weekend for him. Jacob Rondo Smith and Jared Vigar with the other goals for the Phoenix. The Pitbull 2's last goal of the season, and another on the weekend for Joe Malfatti. And Invicta, well, the final game, so we're told, in the career of Kevin Lake comes to a conclusion. Invicta win on the night, but not enough in the grand scheme of things. 3-2 on the evening, but 8-3 aggregate win. The MK Thunder are into the playoff semi-final. Hayden Hagar, and another on the weekend for Marks Canis. Ed Stedman, with the goals. 2 for Jake, 1 for Ed for Invicta as one of the proper old boys who's been knocking around for a while in British hockey. Calls time. All the best to Kev as he skates off into the distance. And then Oxford, well, they put up the fight, but they were never. It was always going to be a tough one. 5-3 loss on the night at the Ox Pens. 12-2 victory for Peterborough 12-4 victory for Peterborough on aggregate as they march on into the next stage and look for their next trophy of the season. Kieran Wilson, Chris Beckett, and Danny Williams for the goals for the Rising Stars. Nathan Long, Connor Pollard, Jordan Liddell, Sam Barlow, and James White with the Phantoms goals. What that means, he says, so I click this button, I click through, hang on, what's happened here? This has not uploaded some of my graphics. That's really annoying. Let's just check something here. What's happened here? Ah, no, you know why? It's because I'm an idiot and I've put them in the wrong order. Let's quickly skip past our friends in the SNL just for a minute. And then we'll have a look at them that way. There we go. Because we then have... We'll go back and have a look at the SNL momentarily. But here is how the playoffs look in the NIHL. There is North 1. Blackburn's walloping 15-4 victory over Nottingham. Puts them through. And Billingham's win in the 4 versus 5 game means that they will go and do the dance again. Blackburn, Billingham, semi-final of the playoffs, and then Deeside will take on Hull. Deeside will have obviously been preparing for Solihull, assuming that they would have probably made it through, but no, it is the Jets who will skate into that other semi-final. You have to feel Deeside are the big favourites in that one, given the scoring ability that they have. Blackburn and Billingham, it could be a bit of a toss-up. It will be Saturday night at the Forum, Sunday at Blackburn. Into South 1, well, Slough 26-2 is the first couple of overs of a cricket game, but they will take on Invicta in the semi-final there, and then Streatham versus Chelmsford, and it's going to be an absolute humdinger between those two. You know that after their after recent playoff victories, that Lewis Clifford will want to go out on a high as the coach of the Chieftains. Ben Painter, of course, announced as being back as head coach of Streatham for next year. We'll want to put a stop to that. Into North 2, and well, that one-game shootout for Sutton and Nottingham, of course, puts the league champion Sting into a semi-final with the Billingham Buccaneers. That'll be a very tough affair for both sides. Sheffield versus Deeside is not what we were anticipating in the other semi-final. Titans, I think, are probably quite heavy favourites in that one, but given the surprise that Deeside managed to spring against the Coventry Blaze, you cannot put anything out of the running. And then into South 2, where MK's reward for a hearty victory over the Mustangs is home and home with the Guildford Phoenix. You wouldn't put it past them, though. This MK side, like I said, it took them a while to find their feet, but they've really, really gotten on a roll. Can the Phoenix shut down Marks Canis and Xander Robinson, and can they find ways to get pucks past Aaron Burton? It's not going to be as straightforward for the league champions as they might think. Peterborough versus Haringey. You wouldn't bet against Peterborough. However, Peterborough do have to go into Alexandra Palace, and they obviously slipped up at the final hurdle against Guildford. Can Haringey find the gap that they need to find into the bargain as well? Don Wetherall back for the Thunder for next season. We'll figure it out. Kudos to the Mustangs. Brought the game and the fans. They certainly are a noisy lot, should be said. Tom Graham, not a good night on Sunday for Cats 2. Could have comfortably been double figures on the night if not for BCL. Lacked a bit of nous with no Jan Kostel Senior against a good Chelmsford team. Yeah, a bit of a shame there for Cats 2 because they've certainly performed quite well, I think. And I'm not necessarily a I think there's things that they could be doing differently with the with Cats 2. However, they've given a good account of themselves, all things considered. We will, of course, then have a look at the SNL, the final weekend of the regular season in the Scottish National League. Edinburgh, of course, already having claimed the title, and our friends Kilmarnock. The end came, and the end came swiftly for them. 12-2 loss at home against Kirkcaldy for the Thunder. Dundee wins 6-0 against Solway. Aberdeen 5-1 victors over North Ayr, and comfortable wins for the sides you would have expected in the SNL. And then the final game of the regular season, all wrapped up and done. Dundee 10, Edinburgh 4, as the Capitals give some ice time to some of the youngsters ahead of the upcoming playoffs and the cup final, of course, that they've got the weekend after next against the Whitley Warriors. Which means the final league table in the SNL looks like this, and well, the Goose Egg never left. Unfortunately, the only senior team across men's senior hockey in Great Britain to not record a competitive victory this season, unfortunately, is the Kilmarnock Thunder. 32 up, 32 down, and a goal difference at the end of minus 313. Kilmarnock are in a rebuilding phase. And sometimes you have to go through hurt and go through the dirt to come out the other side. Wishing the Thunder all the very, very best. Hey, I'd love to have a chat with you guys and talk through the project. I think it'd be a really, really good article. So let's see what happens there. Edinburgh, as we know, the champions. The playoffs, we'll see. Edinburgh take on North Ayr. Dundee versus Solway. Whitley versus Aberdeen. That'll be a bit of a cracker. As will 4 versus 5. Paisley versus Kirkcaldy. We also then know on the 11th is the Scottish Cup final. You've got the women's, the SIH women's playoffs as the before that on the day, and then at Kirkcaldy the main event will be Edinburgh versus Whitley for the Scottish Cup. This is a mirror of 2 years ago. NIHL 2 Thunder Thunder in the Buffalo spot. I mean, yeah, it does feel a little bit like that, doesn't it? Let's just skip on a little bit. Buttons. There we go. We'll go to there for a sec. We'll just hit the full screen. Just come back for a moment. Questions, comments, thoughts, feelings. We've done all the men's bits before we crack on with the women's bits. Let's have a quick look actually at some of the season ticket prices that people have put in the chat. Let's just have a quick squeeze because I know a few people have put their bits on there. Because we obviously talked about Leeds being $4.95, Flames being $4.40. MKL season tickets are $4.75 pay in full or $4.95 on direct debit. Not as expensive as Cardiff. That's our marker when it comes to these things. Haven't had season ticket details out of everybody, and of course we saw there as well from Solway. Oh, I've just managed to knock something over. Let's put that back up before I get told off about that later. He says just quickly pulling those numbers back up from Solway. $4.20 the most expensive adult season ticket. And that's for sitting. $3.95 for standing. Reports online: Steel City Showdown being overshadowed by charging for parking at the rink. My understanding is the signage has gone up, but it's not all quite into into operation as of yet. I think there's some discussion to be had in terms of what people do attending hockey games, because I know there's sort of for people attending sort of session skating, 2.5 hours parking is free. Well, that's great, but that's not going to cover people for hockey games. And it's another one of those sort of very, very sad examples of operators just gouging users for money. And actually, do you need to do that on parking when you're going to be getting their money in other ways? It feels a bit cheap, is what it feels. It's not cheap for anybody else, but it feels like people being squeezed for the sake of being squeezed. Raiders not released theirs yet. Fair enough. On that front, Steel Dogs, as I've had a message confirming them for me. Adult Steel Dog season ticket $3.90, child season ticket $1.95. Not bad. Not bad pricing at all. If that's the quality of team the Dogs are putting out, then that's not terrible value for money. I know the Steelers put up their season ticket prices. Cardiff, of course, jumped their season ticket prices through the roof, and then put out a 20-minute video trying to justify it. But yeah, we will see what happens on with some of those things. Of course, lots of teams still to kind of confirm bits and pieces, but certainly £1,020 for 2 adults and 2 kids for an entire season of Elite League hockey, given the pricing of tickets in some places, does not feel horrendous. I don't think. And $4.60 for an adult season ticket. Just trying to think on some of the. He says quickly grabbing out his calculator because trying to remember how many games they. Just trying to remember very, very quickly how many games are actually included in that season ticket. But even so, even if it's 34, I mean, yeah, 460 over 34 home games if you included every Challenge Cup game, every league game. even if you only did it as a 34 game ticket, it's £13.53 a game. Which is not terrible. I don't think. But yeah, keep sticking more season ticket bits and pieces into the chat if you've got them. Interested to see. I can't remember what Swindon's are off the top of my head. What we do need to do though is we will head back to our graphics, and I will quickly grab up my notes. Reminder, of course, the SNL bits and pieces are done by Connor at SNL Ice Hockey Updates. They're on Facebook. Do go check it. Do go like his page if you haven't already. NHLstats.wordpress.com for everything Joe does and all the box scores for the NHL. Andrew Day, of course, Andrew Day 111 on all of your various social media bits and pieces, has given me all of the stuff with the. Has given me all the bits and pieces for the WNIHL. Massively appreciative thereof. Just having a quick squiz and just making sure I've clicked the right thing here, because this is a bit of an awkward one. There we go. Looking at my notes to make sure I've got the graphics there. Just the one game last weekend in the WNIHL Elite League. A comfortable win for Whitley Bay at home against Streatham. 8-3, the final score for the Beacons over the Storm. Steph Towns with 2. Abby Culture with 2 in goals as well from Ruby Newlands, Mia Forbes, Claire Turnbull and Caitlin Morrison. Tala Gallagher, Rachel Campion and Jennifer Lawrence with the goals for the Storm. The table at the moment, as you can see, looks like this. Queen Bee still 3 points to the good over the Vixens with 2 games in hand. Guildford only 2 points back of the Vixens with 2 games in hand. Would not, of course, catch the Queen Bees if they won those 2 games, but would at least put some pressure. There are no fixtures this upcoming weekend in the WNIHL Elite as we're edging towards World Championships and teams not icing to give people a bit of a rest. The results from last weekend then around the rest of the bits and pieces. No fixtures in the WNHL Division 1 North. Kingston Diamonds still top over the Caledonia Steel Queens there. But there are fixtures this weekend in North 1. Solway versus the Caledonia Steel Queens in the Scottish Derby. That's a 2:50 face-off at Dumfries. Nottingham versus Kingston is 7:30 this coming Sunday. Did have games though in South 1, a pretty comfortable win for the Swindon Top Cats over the MK Falcons. Sam Ruff with the lone Falcons goal, a 4-goal night for Ellie Wallace. 2 goals apiece from Amelia Williams and Lily Endicott. Macy Hicks and Leah Wallace with the other goals for the Top Cats in that one. And a much closer game between the Firebees and the Chelmsford Cobras, but one that the Firebees managed to take by a score of 6-5. A hat-trick from Margot Sire doing the bulk of the damage for the Firebees. Laura Sire, Han Dawson and May Sullivan with the other Firebees goals. 2 goals from Charmaine Easton, Leonie Charles, Urina Neradova and Christy Lake with the goals for the Cobras in that one. Top Cats are 10 points clear now at the top of the table. They have a 10-point gap over the Cambridge Kodiaks, but the Kodiaks do have 3 games in hand. Firebees are in third, followed by Chelmsford, MK and Streatham 2. Just the one game this weekend in South 1. Cambridge will take on Chelmsford. That is a 6:55 face-off in the Bear Pit for the Kodiaks. North 2 Valerie, as you can see there, and another tie to keep us on our toes in the Sheffield Derby. Leeds 3, Sheffield 3. Morgan Walker, Nadia Melenda and Vakari Vaitila Vichute. Somebody please has to tell me how to pronounce this poor lady's name. I keep butchering it every week. For Leeds. For Sheffield, Athena, Idiabor Moses, Kets Robinson and Eleanor Shaw with the goals there. The other game in North Valerie, a 3-1 victory in the battle of the second teams. Kingston beat Whitley Bay. Poppy Skelton with the lone Whitley Bay goal. Sonia Bryce, Carla Clark and Isabella Oswin with the goals for the Diamonds in this one. Just the one game in that division this weekend. Blackburn will take on Sheffield. That's at 4:55 in Lancashire. Whitley Bay Beacons 2, top of the table in North 2 Valley by a point from Kingston. And then North 2 Elizabeth, a comfortable victory on the Sunday, but it was a tough weekend for the Nottingham Vipers on the road on the. I should put there. I've read that the wrong way around. They won on Saturday. They lost on Sunday, so sorry Nottingham. But yeah, that weekend went from bad to better in the space of a sentence. 7-4 victory for Nottingham on the road against Leeds on Saturday. Aaliyah Hemming with a hat trick, Alicia Harper with 2, Quinn Tarling and Rebecca Meets with the other goals for the Vipers. Leeds goals, 2 from Sophie Cook and goals from Eve Bolton and Tilly B on the Saturday. And then on the Sunday they went home and got slapped about by the Caledonia Steel Queen Bees. 8-0 the final score there for the Glasgow side. Mara Phillips with 2, Violet Mayer, Thea Phillips, Katie Gorton Phillips, Jill McDermott, Kaya Robertson and Jordan Troop with the goals for the Scottish side. One game this weekend, Leeds versus Manchester Storm. That is a 5 p.m. face-off. That game is being played at Bradford, not at the Castle because of course of the NHL playoffs. So if you want to catch that women's game, do go to Bradford this coming Sunday. No fixtures in South to Elizabeth either from last weekend or this upcoming weekend. Which means if I press that button there, all we have nothing, no under-16 South games, no games in the Frank Wright Conference, just these 2 games from the under-16s North. An 8-2 victory on the road for the Caledonia Iron Maidens over the Sheffield Shadows, 8-2 the final score there. Both Sheffield goals coming from Madison Rose Walker. 4-goal night for Mara Phillips, Drew Henderson with 2, Rebecca Nixon and Molly McKinnon with the other goals for the Iron Maidens. And then from Sunday's game, Leeds Junior Knights 5, Sheffield Shadows 1. A hat-trick for Evelyn Strong, Martha Bland and Esme Gibson with the other goals for Leeds. Heidi Flame Parnham with the only goal for Sheffield on that occasion. Which means I click that button there. And we've done it. The lot is done. Every game across every senior division, across men's and women's in all of Great Britain, and we've managed to do it by just over 20 past 9. That's not too bad. Which means we open the door. Questions, comments, thoughts, feelings, anything anybody wants to chuck into the chat, please do so. We'll have a bit of a conversation just to round off bits and pieces. Of course, lots going on. Liam Kirk cracking along with the Eisbären Berlin in the DEL playoffs. The joys of VPNs, meaning that if you can get yourself on the German TV, because of course I would never suggest that you use any website that has like 56,000 pop-ups, but Germany every game day now in the DEL playoffs, if you've got a VPN and you can get yourself onto a website that will show it legitimately, the channel in Germany is called DF1, and pretty much every game day in the DEL playoffs, you will get at least a game live on terrestrial telly. In terms of Kirky, the 2-1 victory yesterday over Straubing in Berlin means that the Eisbären have a 3-1 series lead over the Straubing Tigers. That is the Berlin finishing 6th in the regular season, playing the team that finished 3rd, and they are now 3-1 to the good. Game 5 is tomorrow night in Straubing. Elsewhere in the DEL playoffs, Munich and Ingolstadt are tied at 2 apiece. Mannheim, with 3-1 to the good, missed out on the sweep last night. Bremerhaven winning by 6-1. Game 5 is tomorrow night in Mannheim. But there is one series that is done. The team that finished top of the regular season, the Kölner Haie, the Cologne Sharks, for those people who don't speak their German, sweeping the Schwenningen Wild Wings 4-0, winning 2-1 in overtime last night at home to Köln. The final goal from Jan Lucas Senhen coming at the 103:37. Just nothing going on there. If you look, actually, in terms of the overtime periods, because of course sort of 20 minutes, so they went into multiple overtime periods there. But the only thing that happened in OT was a 2-minute penalty for hooking at 71:09, and then the goal at 103 in the 104th minute of that one. But either way, Köln are into the semi-finals of the DEL playoffs. They sit and wait for who comes next on that front. Of course, the NHL playoffs still shaking out. I've got more talk, of course, about the fact Radko Gudas decided to play and get punched in the face by Max Domi for what he did to Austin Matthews. Lots of stuff going on there. Alexander Ovechkin keeps scoring even though the Caps are way out of the playoff race. Sorry, Jamie. But we will see what happens on that on that front. But certainly, like I say, there are legit ways of keeping tabs on what what Kirky is doing. Of course, one of the pieces that we had up on banners on the wall recently, if you weren't aware, 17th of April. With the Sydney Derby, the Bears and the Ice Dogs are back in the Australian Ice Hockey League after a year out for the rink to be refurbished. And AIHL TV, the subscription's out. But if you need to get up to speed on what is going on in the Australian League, you can go over and check on the website. It's on the YouTube channel as well. I chatted to Courtney Kynaston and Sean O'Connor from Oz Hockey Media. They do a live stream show just like this on one night of the week called Hockey Night in Australia, where they look at bits and pieces. But I sat down with those two. We chatted about what's going on in Australian hockey, the good, the bad, the fiddly and the weird. And obviously lots of bits and pieces kind of going on there. So we're excited to see what happens to the AIHL season. So Friday the 17th of April is the start of the AIHL season. So be prepared for that one. That is a Friday, of course. So the game will face off somewhere around 10:30, 11 o'clock our time, and then the season kicks underway in earnest the weekend of the playoff weekends. I'm just double checking here and looking at my phone because I'm just checking because my subscription for AIHL TV has gone out. So for what I'm paying, I get the back catalogue of the last 2 years worth of AIHL because they are all on the same platform, and then I get access to live and full replay of the 150 game season across the AIHL. I've paid £41.50 for 150 games that I can watch. There's an app I can stream to my TV. I can watch it in multiple locations, and I have paid £41.50 for the entirety of the season. It's not terrible, I don't think. All things considered. So make of that one what you will when people talk about such things. But plenty of fun to be had there. Like I said, questions, comments, thoughts, feelings, get those all in. But yeah, if you've never watched any Australian hockey, do go check out the chat with Sean and Courtney. Aside from the fact they are really dedicated and really awesome folk at what they do, lots of good stuff happening. Australian hockey is just as wild as British hockey, it should be said. There's always a few names that kind of pop up there that you will recognise in the past. Paddy Ward still having another go around in the Australian League. He'll be with the Central Coast Rhinos this season after a couple of years with Newcastle. Kim Talberg played in the league last year for Coventry fans. Rob Lakovic played for Perth last season, though I get a feeling he probably won't be back this year. Had a go at it and is now had a summer in Australia and is now probably a bit more settled back here, all things considered. But you never know who's going to roll up. And of course, if paying for your hockey like that is not your kind of thing, your other option is the New Zealand League. The New Zealand League will kick off at the start of May. All of their games will be streamed on YouTube at youtube.com/NZIHL. They generally end up starting a lot earlier in the morning our time. The joy of the Australian League is that you'll get games facing off. Yeah, you'll get a few games kind of facing off maybe sort of 5, 6:30-ish. But a lot of games will face off around the 8:30 mark. So you're able to kind of get up, get your breakfast, get your coffee or your tea, and sit down and chuck a hockey game on for a couple of hours during the summer. And I can't think of a better way to spend my days than hockey with breakfast. There's just nothing better than that for my money as it stands. Playoffs, though, of course, rumbling on. We will hear before too long, of course, about what is happening with the Champions Hockey League, whether Belfast will get the option at that one. The one thing I am just very, very quickly going to check as well is because I want to see what is happening with our friends just across the water in the League Magnus. Because we are into the semi-final stage as it stands at the moment. So we have Rouen versus Bordeaux and Grenoble versus Angers. How did my friends Amiens do? I think Amiens got knocked out in the quarter-finals, didn't they? Yes, they ended up losing to Rouen by 4-2 in that series. But at the moment, Bordeaux. Actually, no, Bordeaux have won the semi-final. Have won that semi-final series against Rouen. They've won it by 4 games. They've swept the team at the top of the league, but it is 2-2 in the other series between Grenoble and Angers, so that one's going to go a little bit longer on that front. Oh dear, that's a bit of a kicker for Rouen. Either way, no worries. Last call. Questions, comments, thoughts, feelings. Anything anybody else wants to chuck in before we go. Should be, like I say, plenty of good games this weekend. Last game of the regular season in the Elite League. Like I say, surreal that I've survived. I've survived my first full season of commentary. But yeah, 2 games left for me in Guildford. And then a couple more after that, it should be said. But yeah. I'll probably reflect on it a bit more once the season's done. But crazy to think that I went from commentating in 3 games in a year to doing... how many? I did a fair few last year as well. I think I sort of ended up doing about 10 for Guildford and a bunch of others all over the place. So I kind of did about sort of 16, and this year I've done over double. Or I've done over double that by the time the season comes to a conclusion. So pretty crazy, Gone pretty well though. I think I seem to have only angered the best people on that front. And as well, the when I was on, do as well go check out this week's episode of 3 on 3. Where Scott very lovingly says, if you were bad at commentary, would have told you. I was like, yeah, it's fair. So clearly done all right by a few good people. But yeah, what a crazy year that is, winding ever close towards the end. We don't have long left, so we need to enjoy it while we can. But yeah, get those last bits in that you want to chat about. Let's quickly go and check the Elite League scores as they stand, because obviously a few will have finished by now. Belfast 7, Coventry 4 is a final score in that end of term classic there. Cardiff 5, Sheffield 0 is a final score from the Vindico. Sheffield really do feel like they've fallen off a cliff. That's not going to make some people very unhappy. The Steelers only putting up 23 shots to 43 from the Devils on that one. Christoph Kontos, Joey Martin, Cole Sanford, Brett Perlini, and Nolan Yaremko with the goals for the Devils. Christian Stover getting the shutout there. Nottingham 2, Manchester 1 is a final score. The winning goal coming at 59-14 from Chase Pearson. So I'm sure he'll get a few thank yous from some folk down in Guildford about that one. Glasgow 3, Dundee 0 is still in the third period. Brett Newman has made it 3 goals to 0 in that one. But yeah, so either way, looks like a few of the position places and bits and pieces will have to go into the wire. Maybe Guildford do want to finish in 6th place and get the Steelers after all. Either way, we will see what happens with that one. You know that hockey players, they want to finish as high as they possibly can. We'll call it there and leave it for this week. Bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, your number one source for all things related to British hockey. Follow my commentary journey through In the Box Thinking, your insight and analysis from the last game I've commentated on for the Guildford Flames. Of course, last weekend's game against Glasgow is up on the website. Next week, you get whatever happens from the last game of the regular season against the Manchester Storm. You can also check out our hockey stories. The new piece is up, my chat with Nick Rothwell about the power of stories, as well as all those other bits and pieces, as well as our 15th anniversary piece is still up as well, and my chat with Sean O'Connor and Courtney Kynaston from Oz Hockey Media to chat through and give you your primer ahead of the AIHL upcoming 2026 season. All of that and 15 years worth of stuff that you can check out. Hockey stories, game write-ups, everything and anything. Over on bannersonthewall.wordpress.com. You can go down into the description, get all of our socials. We're on X, we're on YouTube, we're on Facebook, we're on Blue Sky, and the link there as well to our virtual busking hat at buymeacoffee.com/BOTW if you want to chuck a few quid into the meter, keep the lights on, keep the wheels turning, keeping the algorithm hamster happy, fat and fed. Do go check out 3D Lee and his fantastic 3D printing of his wonderful bits and pieces like that. That's all down there as well. But otherwise, Flames TV this coming Sunday for a 6 p.m. face-off between Guildford and Manchester, and then we'll be back next Wednesday night, 8 p.m. for the only live show that covers every single level of British hockey, top to bottom, left to right. We leave no stone unturned. Belfast to Bradford, Leeds to Lee Valley, everything and anything, because this is where British hockey lives. It's a Wednesday night. It's 8 p.m. It's the BOTW. What's current stream? The end. The end is coming into sharper focus. Some team seasons are already done. The playoffs are underway in Division 1 and Division 2. The semi-finals are here already for them. The National Division and the group stage rumbles ever onwards, and the Elite League is about to take the plunge itself as the WNIHL edges ever closer towards finals weekend. And the SNL, well, they'll be rattling on a few bits and pieces. Not sure how I feel about Edinburgh having to play the cup final followed by the second leg of their playoff game, but the same weekend. But it's not British hockey without a few eccentricities, is it? But after a couple of days, and especially in the last day or so, given the news that we had about Adam Greener, I say this with every bit of sincerity, and I hope you realise how sincere I am when I say this. Be happy. And if you can't be happy, then wherever you are, please do everything you absolutely positively can to please be safe. And if you don't think you are safe, please reach out. As my friend Scotty Woz would say, take care of yourself and somebody else. For bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, this is Anthony Russell saying stay safe. And so long till next time. Have a great weekend wherever you find it. The summer is nearly here, so we need to enjoy the ones that we have while we have them. So have a good one this weekend, and we will see you back here next Wednesday.